Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hope you're doing well. Ramadan Mubarak. So, let us dig into this radical feminist book so that we can peel apart the layers, create solutions for her propositions, and see where she got it right, where she got it wrong, and how we can deal with such rhetoric. Let's begin. Bismillah. Okay. Women's suffrage. Oh wait, never mind. Today, marriage and other forms of straight, monogamous partnership are no longer the recipe for security that they once were. But the lack of security has not been counterbalanced by a greater personal freedom, at least not for straight women. Okay, so what does she mean by personal freedom? Does this is like Destiny the streamer's open marriage, let your wife do something really bizarre? Like, what are we talking here? I don't know how you can argue that women in America are not personally free to do whatever they want. In fact, an alarming rate of women are pimping themselves out online and have easy access to abortion. And if you just look up how many abortions America has per year, you can see that they are not struggling at all. And women are allowed to work. I mean, they're allowed to go to college. How are you restricted in any way? There's no limitation on women whatsoever. Like, fathers barely now can even tell them, hey, don't dress like a hooker when you go out. In fact, I'd argue men have totally given up limiting their daughter's freedom. You know, if they put her on birth control when she's 16, say have at it. Let her go to sleepovers, let her go to different summer camps. You know, they don't really protect their daughters. And actually, if you look at some of the reels on Instagram that are making fun of strict immigrant parents of all cultures on their daughters, you'll see how the newer generation of dads appear to be less protective of their daughters. And husbands permit pretty much everything in America for their wives. I don't know how you can say. And further, when it comes to gay marriage, you often see that the elite, high class, upper class of gay men, they are very promiscuous sometimes, and they're totally free. So why are you advocating that for women in marriage and in normal marriage? You know, straight women shouldn't act like gay men. You know, that's a totally different brain and a totally different body. And I actually don't see lesbian couples, when you see them rarely holding hands. You just, like two butch biker ladies, they're just chilling. Like, what are you getting at here? You know, it's very strange. So, to say that a monogamous relationship isn't security, is she getting at men's desire for polygamy or adultery? What is she saying here? Right? Because it does protect you from diseases if everyone stays loyal. There's a super gonorrhea out there. Look it up. And men are still out there, and women, not using protection, hooking up with people they met on Tinder, risking super gonorrhea, which is not controlled by antibiotics. Look it up. Instead of marriage as a job for life, or a significant part of your life, women find themselves bargaining for succession. So notice this. Instead of marriage as a job, well, marriage is a job in the terms of you have to put in work and get through the customer service angle of it. There's going to be days where you're annoying to your husband. And for me, I think that's mostly during period week, because your brain, I know that's cliche, but it's just real. That's how I am. I am not in a good mood. Give me some pizza. Give me iced vanilla latte. Leave me alone. Okay? Let me watch some video games. Let me read. I need to be left alone. Don't touch me. You know, it's just the way it is. You know, that's just the way it is. So he has to put up with me, and whatever your husband does or you don't like or something, you just put up with it. You dislike something, but you like them as a person. No one can be your walking robot that you always like. You have to put in the work to make the relationship work. You're not just gonna have this blissful, endless romance forever. There's gonna be dry periods, especially when the kids are young, because your energy is focused on them, and sometimes your husband can feel left out, sometimes you can feel neglected. That's the hardest years, personally, me. Maybe when I'm 60 or 70 and I'm still married or whatever, you know, I'll have a different perspective. But right now, marriage is a lot easier when you have no kids and you're just like, our bodies are perfect, and yeah. And then when life gets real, that's when you see like, okay, we're not gonna give up. People used to have company loyalty, so why not have loyalty to your marriage, right? Come on. Or a significant part of your life. Sorry, marriage is the most important decision of your life. This is something I've come to realize more and more, and it makes me angry that we're not taught about this in school as women. And surrogacy is disgusting. These feminists who, they're getting older, they can't have kids, they're doing IVF. I think that's unethical. And then they are getting poor immigrant women and making them carry the baby, and the baby is born with being fed formula, doesn't get to breastfeed, doesn't get to be with the woman who grew the child. It's a monstrous system. It's monstrous. So marriage is definitely a job for life, and a significant part of your life as a woman. Women find themselves bargaining for a succession. Assalamu alaikum. Of insecure, exhausting relationships with no promise of long-term commitment. Now here's the thing. Okay, so exhausting? Well, yes, life is exhausting, isn't it? When I was a server and doing customer service, when I was a telemarketer, no matter what, things can get quite exhausting. You're always going to have a mental load, and you can't escape that. Furthermore, to say exhausting relationships as if it's a dig towards a marriage, I would argue every relationship is going to have exhaustion. So when you're with your kids, you're going to be exhausted. Your grandparents, they're going to get exhausted with grandchildren. People test nerves, and that's normal, okay? You can't, even your boss is going to get irritated with you, and you're going to get irritated with your coworkers. Sorry, we humans are just like that. Even if you have a pet, your dog can chew on the carpet, chew on your mattress, have diarrhea and get everywhere, bite another dog. Sorry, you know, that's just life. And with no promise of long-term commitment, yes, that's the gamble. That's the gamble you take. But life does always involve some risk. Okay? Short commitments, as you're being rotated on the spool of the dating market, it's not more sustainable. When you get into your old age, you're just going to be stuffed into an old folks home because you never had a husband, never had children. I know there are some people there who ended up because they had kids who didn't really care about them and were more selfish. But the commitment you have to protect that person is something nice. Look at that film, The Notebook. How many women cried and were like, I want someone just like that. So, a lot of women actually want long-term commitment. And is she trying to contend here that her favorite group of sodomites and lesbians, is she contending they don't want long-term commitment? Do you see what I'm saying? She's taking a lot of digs at heterosexuals. But we must ask ourselves, is she contending that people in her rainbow mafia don't want long-term commitment? They just want to play the game forever and ever on an endless cycle? Right? Without the cultural or economic structures in place to make dating more of a choice. This is not freedom. This is gig economy dating. Okay, look. Here's one thing I get tired of with my fellow Americans, right? To make dating more of a choice. Oh, I just want to have the choice. I don't want to be forced into a marriage because I need to be fed and housed. This is a utopian ideal of, well, okay, make the government tax everybody to the point where you don't keep very much any of your capital or profit or whatever, and you're all going to get a guaranteed paycheck, and you can be a single mom in a Barbie mansion with the highest quality of food, with nannies, maids, you're the queen of the castle. Each woman becomes a queen, a single mom queen who has a bunch of children catered to by nannies, and your life is like this fantasy realm where you don't need a husband for affection or security or protection. This is not possible. This is not possible. You do always have a choice in who you pick as a mate. You want to work at Toys R Us, CVS, Walgreens, as a barista forever instead of marrying a man with means and being with your children, that's on you. That company, it's a company. It's like a, there's that the boomer company loyalty, you know, hope you get promoted, hope you get your pension, hope they don't cut your benefits. The Office type of thing isn't real. And even in The Office, that show, that classic show, Michael Scott, Dunder Mifflin, they got rid of Michael Scott, right? Like, you know what I mean? And he had to go back. And they changed CEOs or whatever. Like, first it was like that. I don't remember the name of the characters, but they switched. So even then, your job is not going to be this sort of place where it's going to give you life fulfillment. You have a choice to be a hermit in the mountains or a hawk in a corner office in downtown Manhattan. You have that choice, okay? And subhanallah. And so you have to remember that no one is forcing you into a relationship that you don't want. So her framing of this sentence is just not accurate in my opinion. The straight dating market is like any other market, fundamentally skewed in favor of a handful of wealthy old white men at everyone else's expense. Now see here, her racism is again coming quite clear. One thing that bothers me about leftists is they permit racism when it's convenient. And that bothers me. If your ethics were consistent, you wouldn't say stuff like this. If you said old black women, old Jew women, you would be in some serious hot trouble. You'd be very, your career could be ruined, your life could be ruined over a tweet. Look what happened to Roseanne Barr when she made a tweet saying swinging 8 balls or something about a certain politician. And she lost her show. Like, they ruined her life. Think about that, over a tweet. Yet this woman can write a book insulting people of a certain race and all men. And let me tell you something. If you look at some women in the sprinkle movement, there's all colors of women, all shades, who are like, yeah, marry old and wealthy. They don't care about the race of the individual. They care about being kept women who don't have to grind at a 9 to 5. And a lot of them are in the black American community. So this author, I wonder what she would say about that, right? If the older men who have wealth get the women, that would argue that hypergamy makes sense, right? And those babies usually don't get as aborted. You have a lot of poor people in America who abort their children. And so I don't see what's wrong with the older men getting their women. Now, in Islam you can have polygamy, right? So he can have 4 wives. So if that's how women want to survive, who am I to doom them to poverty? Are we going to live in their shoes? You know? This is a woman who is getting mad at wealthy men, yet Will she talk to the old Chinese women who are working in the factories all day, telling them you shouldn't marry someone who's wealthy because he's white? You see? If there's a woman who's grinding her, back in a sewing factory in Indonesia, and she's pretty, and there's an old white man who wants to marry her, would this author say, he's white, and therefore you shouldn't marry him? Really think about her rhetoric here, and how vile it really is. It's an architecture of constrained choice. It can appear that way, but if you want to be a working woman and get rich Hillary Clinton style, the devil wears Prada, alright, go ahead and do that, Meryl Streep. Do it. But not every woman wants to spend 20 years starting regime change wars and stuff like that. Hillary Clinton. Not everyone wants to do that. And not everyone wants to be constantly trying to out-alpha men who are so driven and the brutal realm of the financial world. Yeah, some of us just want to make jelly, make some homemade pizza sauce, and watch our kid play with toys. Right? That's just the way it is. The architecture she's envisioning is a framework within her own mind, and she has put constraints upon herself. That's what I'd argue. Alright? It's an architecture of constrained choice and arbitrary rulemaking. Arbitrary rulemaking, she says. Designed to screw the rest of us out of as much of our time and energy as possible, while dangling visions of fulfillment in front of us that are, by necessity, impossible to satisfy. Fulfillment in front of us that is impossible to satisfy. Contentment is with what we have, and we can still have the vision to want to become wealthy. Being wealthy in Islam is not haram. Uthman bin Affan, the Khalifa, one of the companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, had wealth and was able to arm the soldiers in battle for the Battle of Badr, I believe, and was someone of wealth. So wealth isn't haram, but you need to earn from your own sweat, right? And be content for the blessings you have, because there's always someone who has less than you or wants what you have, right? Watch the evil eye. But you can find fulfillment in other ways that make you happy. What makes you feel fulfilled might not make someone else, right? I remember there was a viral birthday clip of the degenerate, well, let's put it nicely, of our brother who's still learning, Andrew Tate, and he's with a woman in a sauna, and he's having a birthday party, and he's saying how depressed he is. And the men watching it are like, what are you talking about? You have beautiful women, money, all this, and he's like, I'm depressed. And so he isn't fulfilled from that, I believe it was an older video. So he wasn't fulfilled from that. And so her comment here, it seems to be skewed towards just wealthy men, but these younger generations, especially in the tech structure, they're younger and they're gaining money at a younger age, especially with the era of side hustles and all that. You have men earning money in their 30s and 40s, right? So not everybody's becoming rich at 70 like with the old money generations, right? Or not in the barren, aristocratic 18th century, 17th century economic structures anymore. So I don't agree with her framing of that. This is how brute commerce captures the most intimate of human relations. This is how the unimaginative powers that have turned our most visceral and transcendent moments together into a joyless competition for resources. A joyless competition for resources. Now, this is ironic because in the previous page, she was saying that you don't really get fulfillment from marriage. Alright? Meanwhile, that would then imply she was pushing the careerist angle for women. And so it's ironic that now she says joyless competition for resources. So which is it? She said marriage is not security. When women can get married, be provided for, be with their children, and get joy from that, from their children. She felt that women didn't have enough freedom. So which is it? Do you want them to work and grind out in the corporate structure and be joyless cogs in a machine competing for resources? Or do you want them to be content, married in the traditional way? She can't really seem to make up her mind here, right? She may not like it that women choose to marry wealthy men, but that's the way it has always been and always will be, alright? And so she's pushing women to push off marriage, and then complains about joyless competition for resources. This also is something that I notice with these women, is they do a lot of doublespeak. So it's joyless work, but then, oh, have a career, have something along that nature. She's not really aware, because she attacks Christians in their marriage structures, and so this is not wise, because the men will compete because they are able to handle the strenuous and horrible nature of competition. That's what men do. That's why their sports are more entertaining to watch. You watch male basketball players go at it, they're competing and they're bumping into each other, women competing with each other. We get tired, I'd say, on a different scale. So a woman may find the competition exhausting, but she chose to be in the male-dominated market, and I was competitive in my work environment with women and men. And there comes a point where you're like, I don't have to do this anymore, and I'm gonna go practice making pretzels at home. You know, like, you don't have to do it. You don't have to do it. It's a choice, and if you want to be in the flames, don't complain about the burns. It goes with the territory. You know, if business, money is always competition. It's always going to be that way. Millions of women and girls around the world are still devoted to this depressing idea of love. Depressing idea of love, she says. Meanwhile, she just said joyless competition for resources. So you're unhappy in marriage and you're unhappy at work. She has a tone of nihilism I don't think that she's aware of. Who can blame them? If your day-to-day survival and the security of your children depends on making sure the men around you are comfortable, okay, comfortable, and if the comfort of the men around you depends on you squashing down your ambitions, railroading your own needs, providing endless hours of free, emotional, and domestic care, tolerating disrespect and violence, putting your sexuality to work for their satisfaction, and never letting them know how much they have hurt you, then you will do all of that and more. Not because you are a fool, and not because you are naturally selfless, but because you have to. Okay, so this is a juicy chunk of meat right here. Let's get at this, because this is the rad femme thing I always see on the Twitterati sphere. So your comfort depends on the comfort of the men around you. Well, your comfort in the workplace depends on how people react to you as well. You cannot escape that paradigm at all, period. If you have in-laws, there's going to be times where you don't like your in-laws, but you're going to be respectful, and you're going to be mature, and you can't just fly off the handle and have the queen bee persona where all the drones have to come to you and make the honey. That's just not how it is, okay? Life is so deeply uncomfortable for animals and insects all over the world. I mean, I watched a video of this stork-looking bird, and it was in a high-up nest, had 3 babies, and it took one of the babies and dropped it out of the nest. Not sure why it did that, but that little baby fell down and died a slow death. Brutal. I mean, female bears gotta keep the male bears away from their babes. You watch a female lion and the male lions, hunting a buffalo. The buffalo crushes, like steps on her paw, she's injured, she's gonna die. Or one of them gets gored. And it's just the raw reality. Another video I saw, I did some screenshots that really made me think, so I'll do a video on that. There was a water buffalo's baby stuck in the mud. Hyenas slowly crept in. The mom water buffalo is attempting to drive them away. More hyenas come. They start biting at her. And then she has to abandon her calf, and her calf is eaten while alive. See, lions will bite the throat often. Leopards and stuff, the throat, they let the animal die, and then they start eating. They hold it, if you notice, and then it stops wiggling, they start eating. Hyenas don't do that. They eat you while you're alive. And it's usually the female hyena who's the alpha in the hyena group. And this baby water buffalo was screeching the whole time. That mama buffalo had to leave its baby behind, otherwise she would be eaten too with her baby. All because the calf got stuck in the mud. Think about that. Okay? So when she's talking about humans expecting, life to always be comfortable, okay, so she doesn't care that the men are comfortable, but she wants the women to be comfortable with the men. This is a symbiotic relationship. Your husband's comfortable, you're comfortable, right? But you can't always say what's on your mind. You can't always spit venom. You gotta let some things pass. You can't constantly nag and bitch and drive someone down to the point where they go insane. So it sounds like she has a very one-sided way of thinking, and it's no wonder that she's always been friend-zoned. In the past section, she complained about being friend-zoned, and you can see why. Because of the way her personality traits are coming through the text here. So, depends on you squashing down your ambitions. No. You want to go be a corporate boss? Then don't complain to me, like you said, about joyless competition for resources. You want to go for it, woman. But pretending like customers and money pushing and bureaucracy that you deal opening a business and, and the government gets involved and the IRS, you're going to pretend to me that that's better than having a family? Come on. When you're dealing with the bank and the bank's like, this is the interest rate, you can complain and whine, but that's their prerogative. And you're going to have to, you can't just insult the bank guy. You can't just be like, I hate how you're making me feel and I don't want this, so I'm leaving. It's like, he doesn't care. You take it or leave it. That's what it's like in the corporate world. And with customers as well. The customer is always right. How many times someone wants to, like a chef especially, he wants to yell at the customer because they didn't like the food, but he has to suck it up, be professional, fix the order, and then the customer will come back. If you insult every customer who makes you mad, you're going to go out of business real soon. So you're going to have to squash down some parts of yourself and your temper in order to make money. So if a housewife is married to her husband, and maybe he didn't, I don't know, he was supposed to trim the bushes and he forgot. Do you always have to get angry, or should you present your complaint in a way that's more soft and subtle? Like, are you going to trim the bushes today, or was it tomorrow? Or like, what? Like, you can find ways to be like, but if you're like, hey, I told you to trim those bushes, and if you don't do it, like, whoa, like no one wants to be talked to like that, right? There's moments for that, but pick your battles, pick your hill to die on. That's just common sense with every human social interaction. If you answer every person, like every schizophrenic drug addict on the street who's mumbling absurdities at you, instead of just keeping it flowing, keeping it moving, you're going to really struggle with your mental health. In your marriage, you just got to pick your battles. Okay? And who says the husband doesn't have to squash down some of the things that he wants to do because he knows he has to make time for his family? There's tons of men who, like, okay, look at some stand-up comedians. They travel and abandon it. Like Bert Kreischer, he totally abandoned his family and went touring. How many hours does Joe Rogan spend getting high and getting drunk and talking to people on his podcast? And how much time does he spend working out? Add up how many hours he's actually away from his family. Okay? So a man can chase his ambitions and neglect his family. And that's a huge problem, especially for kids. Like rich people may have more money, but poor people also have to work all day. And rich people got to chase that money all day. No matter which way you look at it, a lot of fathers don't get to spend as much time as they'd like with their children. and they have to chase money to survive. Okay, so they're railroading their own needs. Some men want to work out more, they can't because they have to go take that extra shift because the electrical bill that month was too much. So she's very selfish. She's not looking at all how the men suffer, and provide endless hours of free emotional and domestic care. Should your husband pay you money to be affectionate to him? What are you, like, even a prostitute doesn't get affection with you. What are we, some ASMR pretend AI girlfriend here? Like, domestic care, you mean you cleaning up after yourself? Okay, if you want to split chores, do that. But if you think that do you think that you never leave a mess? Like when you brush your hair, there might be a hair on the floor, like he might clean that up. Like, do you think you're perfect? Like, you never have to take out the garbage? It's only him? Like, think about that. So, she doesn't want to give free emotional care to him. Is she going to pay her husband to give her emotional care? So what is you want to marry a therapist? Like, what's going on here? If you don't, emotional should be natural. Like, you should care for that person. Why are you marrying someone who you don't want to be kind to? If you love someone but you want them to pay you for providing emotional and domestic care, what kind of person are you? You're quite a beast. You're quite a beast. Really. A wicked, wicked woman. Tolerating disrespect and violence. Now, disrespect can happen, and some people feel disrespected really easy, and you gotta work on that. Okay? Because especially if you marry someone from a different culture, you're gonna learn what is respectful to them and you. You come together, you work on it. That's why marriage, yes, it's a job. Especially when you have two different races and two different cultures marrying, they have different ideas of what is disrespect. Violence? What do we mean by violence, right? If somebody is whipping you like a racehorse every day, well, that's a problem. But if you slap them and they push you, is that violence just for them? You know, let us examine this. A lot of men put up with violence because they can't defend themselves because they'll go to jail. So men do feel quite a lot of violence. And if you don't think that, you just need to pay attention to more true crime and how many women on their secret cameras do abuse men in really tenacious ways. And so to deny that is wrong. Putting your sexuality to work for their satisfaction, well, it's a two-way street, and men and women are different, and you're gonna have to have times, I guess, in life where it's like, it's not gonna be like the Titanic movie. She doesn't have kids. Like, when you have kids, you ain't got time for all that. It's a schedule. Alright, let's get it done. She's just so out of touch. She needs to get around more feminine, traditional women and get out of this latte, laptop, Ivy League, smell your own farts circle that she's in. She's got a very skewed sense of reality. Such ridiculous. Never letting them know how much they've hurt you. No one says that. You just gotta bring it up in a certain way. Right? And if he comes to you and tells you, but you're like, I don't think I might not. You know, don't be so argumentative. It's, you know, you can establish that. Verbalize when someone hurt you. And sometimes you can just be like, you know, that was kind of rude. But think about all the times you were rude as well. It's come on. This isn't too hard to see. Not because you're a fool, and not because you are naturally selfless, but because you have to. This woman thinks like everything is oppression. Okay? This is like a caricature she's built. Like, the woman, if only she didn't have a husband and a family, she would have become, Daenerys Targaryen on top of a dragon, flying around, ruling the empires. It's like, no. 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 It's like, each path you take in life, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you a level of suffering. That's just the way it is. It has to be that way. Because nothing worthwhile is given to you easily. You gotta struggle with pregnancy. You gotta struggle with postpartum. And then you get your beautiful little cute bundle and they start talking and doing silly goofy things and saying their first words, and you get the joy, but you have to get through that struggle first. how many moms doing home births, right? Or even women getting C-sections, but just take from me, that you give birth and you like, ouch, ouch, and then you pick up your baby and you're like, wow, wow. All that struggle, look at that. And your baby's covered in blood and you're bleeding and the placenta came out and you're like, whoa. Okay? You gotta struggle. And relationships, it's always gonna be something of discomfort, but work is discomfort. The weather is uncomfortable. Okay, there'll be days where you won't get to eat what you want. There might not be stuff in the store. There's people in war zones. People getting all types of cancers here. Okay? Alright? It is gonna be a hard life on this earth. Okay? We have so many blessings now. There's still hardships. Tons of mental health problems, drug addicts everywhere. It's like zombie apocalypse with them. Get back! But we still can't forget how much we have to do in this world. Okay, so she says squashing down your ambitions. Well, also you have to squash down what you say to your boss. Your boss is somebody who is a person who's going to test your nerves a lot, and you got to squash that down. So the same thing she complains about marriage are the same things I can say about your coworkers. Something to say. This was a longer reading, but it's very informative. I hope you enjoyed, and I'm going to hang out with my little one. She's there. She's got some cute, these little seed pods from the gum tree, and she's having fun. So if you'd like to join my blog and support the channel, the two channels, my second channel is Bibliophile Hermit, and all the content that I do, both on my blog and on Instagram, and on the two channels, you can do so via my blog, which is www.subscribestar.com/MilahanArchive. And I'm still fundraising for the book holder, about 1/4 there, alhamdulillah, and the wooden panel, okay? Because I'm going to start doing videos where I'm reading with my child, and, you know, the wood would be a better background than, I don't know, something more random, right? Chairs and whatever, so. And less distracting as well, so that would help. Also helps the children to be less distracted by what's moving in the background. Let me know what you think, and take care, fam. Ramadan Mubarak.